Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Have you ever wondered why some connections feel so completely effortless, like they're just built to last, while others totally drain your energy and inevitably crash? Well, today we are treating human connection not as this mystical, unpredictable force, but as a highly logical, systems-based architecture. We are taking the latest 2026 breakthroughs in cognitive neuroscience, crossing them with IT systems architecture, and applying all of it directly to behavioral psychology. Get ready because we are literally about to look under the hood of human bonding. So here is our systems architecture schematic for today. We're covering the relationship operating system, applied XLA versus applied SLA, the stateless here and now, cognitive Legos and spatial anchors, sorting memories like nested dolls, and finally, compiling the love gestalt. Kicking things off with Section 1, the relationship operating system, and how we navigate the AN32 algorithm. Moving right along to Section 2, Applied XLA versus Applied SLA, the bug versus the patch. So let's be real for a second. There is this exhausting transactional trap we often fall into, which is the Applied SLA mindset. In standard IT, a service-level agreement, an SLA, tracks rigid targets. But when you apply that to a human connection, you are forcing the whole system to constantly tick off relationship checkpoints. It demands this continuous, stressful validation. It's a clumsy, high-latency exchange that completely drains the brain's processing power. But then we have the alternative, which is an absolute game-changer. By shifting to applied XLA, an experience-level agreement, you throw out the checklist. You focus strictly on how the other person actually feels. You're optimizing for a peak emotional and intellectual user experience. It's logical, it's non-blocking, and it keeps your signal totally pure and frustration-free. Section 3. The stateless here and now, releasing the execution loop. Now, to make XLA work, we need what's called the stateless functional developer model. Basically, this is a systematic approach where you deliver your input, maybe it's a great conversation or just a shared laugh, and then you immediately release the execution loop. You stop overthinking it. You stop anxiously anticipating their reaction from afar. By dropping completely into the here and now, you maintain your own independent, stress-free runtime. You're eliminating the metabolic tax of continuous mental rehearsal, which frees up all that energy so you can just exist in the moment. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the math of cognitive friction. In applied mathematics, the variable W models noise and diffusion. For us, W represents all that low-level anxiety and continuous mental checking. We're essentially contrasting applied XLA with applied SLA to achieve arrhythmic reorganization, meaning we naturally resolve the brain's internal uncertainties. We are establishing our starting points purely in the here and now. And by doing that, we make W vanish entirely, which directly drives spatial attention reorganization. The transmission is pure, the registers are parked, and we leave the deep processing entirely up to their bare hardware. Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, Cognitive Legos and Spatial Anchors, exploring that bare hardware. To understand how this processing actually happens, we have to talk about 3 massive 2026 neuroscientific breakthroughs that perfectly bridge abstract logic with our physical biology. First up, MIT researchers proved that the prefrontal cortex uses flexible plug-and-play circuits. They call them cognitive Legos. The brain doesn't waste time building new circuits for every single task. It just snaps these reusable blocks together. Second, the University of the Witwatersrand validated something called functional vicariance, proving the brain can bypass historical noise and adapt to immediate spatial stimuli. This means a stateless restart in the present moment is a biological reality. And finally, Professor Christian Doehler proved that the brain's internal navigation system actually organizes abstract knowledge spatially. Together, these 3 breakthroughs show that the brain is programmatically constrained to snap your interactions together just like reusable modules. Let's zoom in on Doehler's spatial index cards for a second, because this is wild. Your brain uses physical spatial networks, specifically grid cells and place cells, as a coordinate map to categorize non-spatial information. By introducing an abstract idea or a meaningful emotional connection within a very specific physical coordinate, you're literally pinning those memories to a spatial folder in their mind. This spatial attention reorganization means every single time they return to that physical space, their brain naturally retrieves the positive data packet you left there. It's like leaving a mental sticky note. Section 5. Sorting memories like nested dolls. Processing the data. Think of memory sorting like a matryoshka doll. It perfectly visualizes how a tiny, highly specific memory fragment scales up into a massive, overarching framework. Your raw daily fragments, a certain look, a fleeting conversation, those form the innermost doll. Then, as the brain processes those fragments, it builds the middle doll, which is your consolidated frameworks. Over time, these expand into the outer doll, literally shaping a person's entire semantic world model. This is exactly how one single, pure interaction scales up to become a foundational emotional reality. And this perfectly explains those weird glitches in our memory sorting process. Think about when daytime pattern recognition trips up. With déjà vu, the brain fires a familiarity signal without the conscious memory attached, routing this intense feeling of recognition right back into the overarching framework. Jamais vu is the exact opposite. The familiarity signal drops out completely. Discussing these kinds of phenomena actually leverages a logically minded person's analytical brain, giving them action symbols to map out their own internal experiences with you. And that brings us to section 6, our final chapter, compiling the love gestalt, the final output. So, all these IT metaphors we've been using, they are deeply grounded in real psychological principles that trigger literal biological responses. To optimize your AppliedXLA, you have to hit these foundations. Shared high-arousal experiences make the brain attribute physical excitement directly to your presence. Consistency taps into the mere exposure effect, building that comforting Gestalt familiarity. True biological anchors are forged through oxytocin, the bonding hormone developed through shared experiences and eye contact. And finally, meaningful vulnerability creates this highly unique insider dynamic that separates you from everyone else. When you consistently apply these principles, you achieve something absolutely fascinating: interpersonal neural synchrony, or INS. This is where two people's brainwaves literally begin to align. It is heavily regulated by the orbital frontal cortex, the OFC, which is the region that evaluates rewards and social connections. When you successfully align a person's rational perception with your experiential world, the OSC updates its valuation node. You are, quite literally, syncing your brains together. So how does this all become permanent? Well, the compilation happens while we sleep. Your unshielded, authentic input delivers those Gestalt Lego blocks right to their modular brain. Then, during NREM and REM sleep, their hippocampus actively replays these fragments, a process known as neural replay. Through repeated iterations over time, the neocortex structurally welds these blocks together. This is the moment a permanent, overarching love gestalt is formed. The sleeping brain takes all those individual blocks and securely writes your unflattened coordinates onto their psychological map. Ultimately, by using AppliedXLA, you compile a beautifully designed, self-assembling system. Your raw, unpadded starting coordinates are written directly to physical silicon. You're completely abandoning that ticking clock of a checklist in favor of an optimized emotional experience. You aren't forcing a connection anymore. You are provisioning the architecture for a self-assembling system simply by keeping the signal pure and remaining completely grounded in the present. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. The science is incredibly clear. The brain utilizes spatial anchors, cognitive Legos, and sleep consolidation to build its reality. Knowing exactly how the brain processes these connections at a hardware level, how will you structure your next interaction to ensure a peak user experience? How will you drop those exhausting transactional checklists, clear out the cognitive noise, and truly show up in the here and now? Because I promise you, when you do, the compilation takes care of itself.